McClendon. He leaps. Oh! He doesn't get in. He fumbled the football. Carolina holds. The game is over. And Carolina has won the game.
With 5 seconds, he's going to throw it. Howard leaps. He has it. Touchdown. Carolina back from the dead to tie the game with 2 seconds to go. There is a flag down, but holy smokes.
2 and 4 in overtime games. Carolina 1 and 3. Here from under center. Give off to Greg Little. Little pulls away. Little is going to score. Carolina wins.
Snap back, spot down. The kick is cleanly away. It is good!
And
Nick
it's
Weiler with
yes,
a 54-yard field goal. And how about them Tar Heels? They do it!
Possible win. Snap, spot, kick away, high enough, long enough. It's good! It's good! Carolina has won the game on a 42-yard field goal by freshman Hunter Burns.
In his end zone. The punt, very high. Switzer will have room to return it. He fields it at the 40. Coming near side, Switzer at the 50. Switzer, 45, cuts back at the 40. 35, breaks a tackle at the 30. Still on his feet. No, he's not. Yes, he is. Ryan Switzer for 6. He is doing his best Giovanni Bernard impression. Ryan Switzer again. Bernard fields it at the 26. Heading to the far side. Gio at the 35. Gio, he's at the 50. No, he's not. Yes, he is. Gio is going to take it for a touchdown. Are you kidding me?
What's going on, guys? Welcome into another edition of the Heel Tough Blog Podcast. It's your host, Anthony Pagnotta, here with you guys as always. Josh Marlowe alongside of me, and we are coming to you the night after the Tar Heels, along with Clemson, NC State, and Syracuse, officially put a bow on media days for the ACC in 2024. Now, of course, a little bit different this time, 4 days instead of 3, previously 2. So things a little more spaced out. The guys not nearly as hectic as in the years past, and I think you could definitely tell in some of the interviews that we got later on in the day, the guys weren't quite as worn down. So I think that'll be really cool for you guys to check out. As I mentioned in the tweet prior to it, if you're on Facebook, maybe you didn't see that, we do have an interview from Kaimon Rucker. That was done with me and Walker Mail, who is the co-host of the Wes and Walker Show. I've been filling in throughout this week for Wes Bryant, who has been doing some ACC Digital Network stuff. So we'll play you that interview exclusively here. First time you'll be able to hear that. They didn't even play that on air today because we recorded it afterwards. So that'll be really cool. And then Power Echols. I got to sit down exclusively with him to sort of close everything out for the day. So, yeah, great stuff with both of those guys. You'll hear that coming up later on in the show. But we got to get into some of the just general takeaways from ACC Media Days. Of course, the guys were up there on the stand talking. That's, really the big attraction. But I think even more important is what they say when they get into some of the breakout interviews and then what they say when they get onto Radio Row. And so I had a plan of where I was going to start coming in. But right before we went live, you told me that you went back, you watched a few videos from 99.9 The Fan in Raleigh. They have some people that we are friends with over at WFNZ, Adam Gold, as well as a couple other people, Dennis Cox as well. Saw him out there. Great to see him. And you said that the interview with Mack Brown was a particularly interesting one because he said something that maybe didn't match the narrative that a lot of the other people around ACC Media Days were talking about when it came to the quarterback. So explain that to everybody and why that really piqued your interest.
Yeah, he said that the quarterback battle is a two-man battle because Jacoby Criswell missed all of spring because he transferred back into Carolina, in the middle of the summer. Whereas last edition of the pod, we were reacting to Phil Steele comments, and Mac Brown told Phil Steele that it was a 3-quarterback competition. Now we get to ACC kickoff. We're inside, a week away or so from the team reporting to camp. And Mac Brown says it's a two-man battle because the third guy, he didn't get here until the middle of the summer. So maybe we could work towards a 3-man battle. Also, if you go back and listen to, I believe, Connor Harrell talk at the podium, when he talked about the quarterback battle, he just referenced him and Max Johnson being the two guys battling it out for the job. So don't know if this is a good thing. Don't know if this is a bad thing because, then Max Johnson talked about being surprised that it became a 3-quarterback battle. But all in all, I mean, Mac Brown said it point blank that it was a 2-quarterback battle with Criswell missing or not getting here until the summer. So I think the short takeaway is I don't feel any better about where we are entering fall camp, because whether it's the coaching staff or the players, they're not 100% sure of who's all actually battling for the starting job once they open camp next week.
Yeah, it's confusing. I mean, look, I don't know. I want to believe if this is actually the truth, what Mac Brown is saying, then I'm 100% on board, because this is what I've been saying the whole time, is that Jacoby Criswell, yes, he has been here before. Yes, he is a guy that Mac Brown is familiar with. And yes, there is talent there. I think he's a guy that could succeed in this system as well. But I really wish he was here in the spring. And he wasn't, because he had not decided to enter the transfer portal until after spring ball with Arkansas. So, I mean, to me, you hear Max Johnson in the breakout room said that he was told by Chip Lindsey earlier this offseason that this was a depth move. This was a guy that Mac was familiar with, that they were bringing in just to provide depth. So, which, I mean, look, I get it. You really want coaching staffs to be truthful with these guys, or especially if you're one of the players. Let's be real honest with ourselves here. They are not always 100% honest, especially in situations like this. They don't want to tell you, yes, we're bringing somebody in, especially if they believe, like we were speculating was possible, that what they saw from these guys in the spring wasn't really that great. You don't want to kill their confidence, because, hey, they could show up in the fall, they put in some work in the summer, and all of a sudden they look like your guy. So that's the reason you may tell them, hey, he's a depth guy, but then he ultimately becomes a part of the battle. I think it's really weird, though, how, as you said, it doesn't seem like anybody's really on the same page. Kaimon Rucker was asked about it at a different point during the day. He said it's a 3-man battle. So, I mean, it's very odd. And I also find it a little weird, and maybe Mac Brown is just maybe projecting forward when he's talking with Phil Steele and saying, look, Phil, there is a possibility that Jacoby Criswell could end up being the starter. But, I mean, it's an answer that I wonder how much of it has to do with the fact that you had 2 quarterbacks with you at ACC Media Days. You didn't have the third one with you. And I wonder also if maybe it is being hyped up as a 3-quarterback battle, but really Mac Brown knows it's 2 guys for right now with a distant third that, hey, if he comes out, if he really just blows us away and looks that much better, then he could be the guy that actually ends up being the starter. So, yeah, I don't know how to feel about it, because if I take him 100% at his word, I feel great. I feel a lot better, because then I'm like, okay, we're at 2 quarterbacks, and we're going to be close to figuring out this battle as we go throughout the fall. But I mean, I still think there is a good possibility that Jacoby Criswell could end up being the guy. Now, a few of the other things that I took away. First of all, I thought looking at the comments that some people had, I thought on the stand, Mac Brown was really potentially going after the landscape of NIL. I think it was more in the breakout room where he started talking more about the changes. You had the quote where he said that we've had more changes in the last 3 years than in the first 47 years of my time in college football, which I thought was really interesting. But on the stand, he said, look, I think NIL is a good thing. He pointed out all the good stuff that Carolina has been doing, especially a lot of the players and how they've been involved with nonprofits. Kaimon Rucker got a chance to talk about one of the nonprofits that he was a part of earlier this offseason. So I thought all that stuff was kind of interesting. And I don't know. There were some people that, said that Mac Brown, seemed a little more angry, especially about the state of college football. Listening to him, I didn't feel like I heard necessarily anger on that topic. Now, there's another topic maybe, but specifically to NIL and the state of college football, I didn't hear anything really that's that different from what he's been saying.
I think his message that he wanted to get across was Carolina has NIL opportunities, something that we talk about a lot, that yes, despite not being a Ohio State, a Michigan, an Ole Miss, whatever, our star players have been financially compensated the way that they need to be to compete at the level we want to compete at week in, week out. More importantly, he just wanted it to be known that he feels like his program is using NIL in the right manner. And whether that's right, wrong, and different, I don't know. I know we saw the report today where Ohio State had more than $20 million committed into their NIL program this offseason, and what is going to be a make-or-break year for Ryan Day and Columbus. We know about the resources that Lane Kiffin has at Ole Miss and the money they spent this offseason putting together a team that not only can compete for a playoff spot, but can compete to win the SEC. So we look around the country and we see the way that they're doing it, and there's obviously nothing wrong with it. But I think what Mac Brown was really trying to drive home was we're using NIL for the way that it was intended to be upon it being made legal. And he still feels like he can compete the way that he wants to compete while doing so. So, there have been other times when he's talked about NIL in a much more negative way. Obviously, he came to his senses and realized that's not going to help him recruiting high school players or players out of the transfer portal, because that's how you're getting players now. But was very interested just to hear what he had to say on that topic, as we are with every coach when they get behind the podium. And I thought Mac Brown was non-controversial about that topic, and that's a good thing.
Yeah, I think what you said is 100% right. I think what he was trying to do is once again state that we are doing things the right way. Basically, I think what he's trying to say is that, look, I'm not the guy that's out here talking to guys and before games and saying, hey, we really want you to come and join us in the offseason. He's doing everything the way that he thinks is the right way to do things. Now, I will say, look, he's not a guy that's saying, okay, we're just the guys have to go out and find their own opportunities. They have the Heels for Life thing where you as fans can donate and stuff like that. They're doing those things, which is not what NIL was initially meant to be, but it's what this has divulged into. And you got to give them credit. Carolina is saying, hey, we're still going to do that kind of stuff. But yeah, we're not the guys that are going out tampering with guys, because we don't want that to happen to our own roster. Now it is. There's nothing you can do about it. Hell, they got a guy, speaking of Ole Miss, literally a guy stolen off their roster by Lane Kiffin earlier this offseason in Diego Pounds. So, that's but it is what it is. You're right. I think he went about it the way that he needed to. And, he wasn't as ornery about that as I think some people thought he might be. Now, I thought one of the best things that I heard all day, and this to me, I love this from Mac Brown, because I think we at times have wondered, where is the Mac Brown of old? Where is the Mac Brown that was at Texas, that was, at times a hard-nosed, head coach? I still think, on the sidelines and everything like that, I mean, he picks and chooses his moments. But I love this quote today where he was asked about people. And this is, by the way, this is a yearly question. And at some point, why are we even asking this question? Because we know where the answer is going to lie. Now, this one probably worth asking this year because the answer was great. But he was asked, hey, you're 73 years old. People are bringing that up in recruiting and everything like that. What's your response to this being brought up in recruiting? And he pretty much said, well, I know coaches in this conference have brought it up before, and 6 of them have been fired. So maybe they should worry about their own jobs instead of worrying about mine. I thought this was a great moment from Mac Brown because, I mean, look, man, we know that's being said on the recruiting trails. I don't know. I mean, from my perspective, watching him today, he doesn't seem like a guy that's really lacking energy. He doesn't look like a tired guy up there. He doesn't seem like he's just going through the motions in these press conferences. I mean, we've seen that here locally in Charlotte. We saw that with a guy like Frank Reich. I don't get that feeling from Mac Brown. I think this is a great moment for Mac Brown to really just punch back, because for a while, it seemed like he's just kind of said, yeah, I'm just not really focusing on that. For him to say, hey, look, the guys that have been saying that, maybe they should have worried about their own jobs a little bit more than mine. I thought that was great.
Yeah, no, that's the kind of edge, the kind of chip on his shoulder you like seeing from your head coach, because, and we knew it when he got rehired that this was going to be a recruiting tactic used against him because of his age. And remember when he got rehired, been out of the sport for 5 years in terms of being a coach. But look, you saw it. The same thing happened with Coach Smith in basketball. Same thing with Roy Williams in basketball. And they handled it very well, and their program never plateaued. Like it never fell off. Carolina's had their fair share of issues under Mac Brown. 3 of the 5 years he's won 8 games or more, which is kind of the baseline standard expectation for the program. And he's guided them to a 9-1 start and a 6-0 start in the process, on top of taking them to an Orange Bowl. The only way that, his decision, it gets taken out of his hands about his future, is if the program falls off like it did under Larry Fedora, where they're non-competitive. I don't think that's going to happen. And so as long as Carolina is still winning 8-9 games, going to the bowl games, putting guys in the NFL like they've been doing, he's not going anywhere until he wants to go anywhere. Mm-hmm. And that's just the reality of the situation. That was true when he got rehired. So, but you like seeing that, and hopefully that edge kind of carries over and permeates throughout the coaching staff, but really for his players. Like, we know how much the players love him. It's very obvious that he's a player's coach. Yep. So go out there and shut these people up and say you're playing, that are saying you're playing for an old fogey that's not going to be there to see you through the end of your career. Well, go out there and kick someone's ass, primarily that team in Raleigh, because that's the coach that's probably that's said as much negative things about him and is still employed. So hopefully this leads to something where that's a quote that we kind of hear get brought back up throughout the season, because I like hearing that from my head coach, because it makes it easier to defend him when he's still motivated on Saturdays to go out there and kick someone's rear end.
Yeah, and I mean, look, we know Dave Doran is definitely the one that's saying a lot of that stuff. Again, I mean, his players, it's the same mindset. Like Jordan Waters, Walker asked him earlier today, would he ever have considered transferring to Carolina? And he said, I almost cursed on air when you asked me that question. I love it, man.
He didn't have the academic credits to transfer from Duke to Carolina, because 8 miles down the road, you actually get an education.
I mean, it's just laughable how much they hate it. It's hilarious because, dude, if Mac Brown would have contacted him, if they would have had an NIL money package similar to that, then he would have. My thing would be, we don't even need you. We got a better running back. So what are we worried about with that? We got a guy that's trying to rush for 2,000 yards this year. He's looking at Christian McCaffrey and trying to put up numbers similar to him. That's what he said earlier today. But one thing I kind of wanted to ask you about too. I mean, to me, like, he made it seem like he's going to be similar to what, Bobby Bowden was, similar to what Joe Paterno was, where they coached into their 80s. Like he doesn't seem like a guy that's really wanting to go anywhere right now. Because I think when he brought those guys up on the stand, he was basically saying, I am similar to these guys. Football is my life. I love my family. He was around them, when he was on TV and everything like that. But football is just a part of his life. It's built into him. And to me, I don't see that being a guy that's planning on leaving anytime soon.
Well, I think there's two parts to that comment. One, because of his age, he has to make it known that I've got the energy and that I'm committed to doing this for X amount of years. Because if he comes out there and says, yeah, at 75, I'm calling it quits and going to Florida to retire, you're not going to be able to recruit. And I don't follow recruiting all that well or all that in depth, but we've seen some slippage in recruiting the last couple of years. I think basically what he was saying was that he looked at, Joe Paterno and Bobby Bowden, two of the best to ever do it, and asked them why they coached so long. And they gave their answers. And it basically was football was their life. They know nothing out of it. And that's, I mean, I don't mean to be really shallow here, but when you work in sports become your life, and your life revolves around that sport calendar. And yes, you have families and you have life stuff that comes up, but the majority of the time you fit your family schedule and your life schedule around your football schedule or your sports schedule. We know that Mac Brown loves being a mentor. And in this era of college athletics, I think he feels even more of a burden to be a leader, to be an example for the next generation, because they're entering the sport at a wild different time with NIL, with the transfer portal, and with conference realignment. I have no problem with that if he coaches until he's 82, if Carolina is successful.
Yep.
And then I think, and I don't think like Joe Paterno got forced out of Penn State. No matter what would have happened with that program, they would have never made him leave. Bobby Bowden, no matter what would have happened, they would have never made him leave. I don't think Mac Brown has that same level of grace at Carolina because he doesn't have a national championship. But I think he's got comfortability to where he could survive maybe 1 or 2 bad years. Mm-hmm. But if Carolina were to dip and they're barely a bowl program, I find it hard to see him staying employed as long as he wants. So I've said it since they brought him back. No one makes you believe more in our ability to win at a high level more than him, because he's the last guy that did so on a consistent basis. As long as he's recruiting well, as long as Carolina's winning and playing in meaningful games, I don't care how long he's our head coach, even if that means it's well into his 80s.
Yeah, and really the last thing that I sort of took away is, listening to him talk about this year's team. you know, in years past, it's felt like he's almost, I'm not going to say he's said it's easy, but it seems like he's telling you this is the reasons that we can get over the hump, that we can be great. This year, I mean, he literally said up there that we have a chance to be a good team. That's what he left it at. And so I don't think he's a guy that's putting out a bunch of expectations on this team. And I think that might be, you know, that might be the thing. There's certain areas where he is seeming like he's pretty confident. He brought up the offensive line and how that was a problem even back when he was the head coach in the 90s. He said that was the undoing in that 97-98 season, was that they allowed 9 sacks in the game against Florida State. And then he said that's pretty much what's been happening the last few years here. This year, he feels like that is not necessarily the case, and that he is confident that they are putting a pretty good unit around the quarterback position. Even with saying all that, it doesn't feel like he's nearly hyping this group up as much as he has the last few. And it makes sense. You don't have a guy that is a generational quarterback like the 2 that he has had so far in his first 5 years at Carolina. But I feel like this is sort of refreshing, because I think what he's trying to do is take the pressure off of his team, let them know that people are doubting them, and hoping that they can really feed off of that. I mean, he said, you know, back in 2022, it was sort of similar. I mean, I guess to a certain extent, I felt like even going into that year, though, we had a little bit more confidence than we do even in this year's team. But I think as we're going along here throughout the summer, we're starting to gain a little bit more confidence in this team. And you never really know where it could be a season that sets up where they start hot out of the gate, because the expectations and the pressure really aren't on their shoulders.
I think the thing I took away is that, and I made this comment the other night, some of his best coaching jobs have been when he's had no expectations.
Mm-hmm.
And they had questions at quarterback, running whatever it was, and they got the answers to it. There's no expectation for this team. Not like that, not like it's been placed upon them last year, and then Drake May or Sam Howell's junior season. There was expectation there to compete and win at a high level. And so what I'm getting back to is I think he knows internally they got a chance to be really, really good. But why let that secret out? Why talk your team up and convince voters during your time there today to maybe put them higher than where they're probably going to find themselves when we get the ballot? I think it's released next Wednesday for the upcoming football season. Let us be in the middle of the pack so he can use that when they get to camp, and he can use that when they get into some of these high leverage conference games later in the season. So I told you the other day that the closer we've gotten to the preseason, my belief has picked up to where I think they can be a sneaky 7 to 8 win football team. And I think Mac Brown feels the same way, where if they get the quarterback right, and he's proven that he can evaluate a quarterback in a quarterback battle, and they're better up front on both sides of the ball, and they're average defensively, they got a chance to probably win a few games they probably shouldn't. We didn't think they'd win back when we got the schedule back in in February, whenever we get the schedule. So it's typical Mac Brown, where he's trying to win the preseason, but he's trying to win the preseason this year in a different way as opposed to years past.
Yeah. And I don't think it's nearly as aggressive, and I think it may actually be working even better. So yeah, I mean, that schedule prediction show, we're going to do that again where we go through the schedule. I think it'll look a little bit different than when we did it the first time around. And I think a lot of more people will be in the same range as us than they were, the first time that we did it. All right, guys. Well, now it's time to hear from the players. And we got to start with the dude that, by the way, had probably the best swag of anybody that was there. Kaimon Rucker rocking the glasses up there on the stage. Great move, by the way, because the lights up there probably incredibly bright. The suit was looking amazing. And so me and Walker Mail got to sit down with him. You'll hear a lot of Walker here. It is his show, by the way. So we sat down with him today and got to chat with him a little bit about this upcoming season. Here's that interview.
Back Sports Radio 92.7 WFNZ. Kaimon Rucker now joining us on the Bodyworks Plus guest hotline. Edge rusher for the North Carolina Tar Heels. Kaimon, how are you doing today, man?
I'm doing good. How about yourself?
Yeah, I'm doing well. We appreciate you joining us, and I feel like the biggest question most people want to know about transitioning into this year, new defensive coordinator, Jeff Collins, with the new system. You talked about bringing energy and aggressiveness, and that's what Jeff Collins has been doing so far with him, having a stranglehold on this defense. What is it about Jeff Collins with a couple of those qualities that you like that maybe benefits your own playing style?
I feel like with me, I'm a very aggressive guy. It's just like if you pull at the tape any game that I played throughout my years, whether I was a freshman or coming off my fourth season, I've always played with that type of aggression. I always play with a chip on my shoulder. Every time you see me, it's just like I find like my play in violence. And so it's just like with Coach Collins and how, he doesn't get the nickname, the Minister of Mayhem, for no reason, And so with him bringing that mayhem on our side of the game with UNC's defense and, how the guys that we have on our side, the talent that we have, the energy of the guys that we have, and how many ballers we have, how many dollars we have, that's something that was very vital for us and that he's bringing to the table. And we've seen a little bit of that in the spring, and I'm looking forward to seeing how it goes in the fall camp and the rest of the season.
Well, you did say, too, in an interview, I believe it was on a podcast or something, about communication being a problem last year on the defensive unit. Mm-hmm. How is that coming along this year?
I feel like it's going really well. I feel like Coach Collins has done a really great job of simplifying the defenses, but in such a way it's just understanding is like you cannot fulfill the requirements of this defense without communicating. Because in the game of football, it doesn't matter you're on defense, offense, special teams. There's no such thing as over-communicating. You have to know where you got to be at all times, letting your brothers know where you're going to be at all times so you can make the play work. And so with us, it's just like Coach Collins has done us a favor of blending some of the calls that we had that were very similar in how we're running things from last year to this year, trying to keep some of the same things so it doesn't, mesh too much and it gets a little bit confusing.
Yeah.
But with the only thing is just his different terminologies of certain play calls and how we're doing certain things. But mostly it's kind of just it flowed through very well, making everything easier, making it an easier transition for us. But obviously, like I said, communication at the end of it is vital. We can't go through a game and not know what we're doing or not communicate or what we need to do, whether that's a blitz or just a base call.
Well, you got the new system, but also, Cedric Gray is gone defensively. And now, you're a veteran guy in that room. You're a guy who has produced at a pretty high level. So, is there any change sort of in what your responsibilities are in Jeff's system as opposed to Gene's system? And in terms of a leadership role, have they kind of come to you and said, look, this is where we kind of need you to step up and be a leader?
Yeah, I feel like to answer your first question, I feel like there's not really a lot of things that are too different from Chiz's system than Coach Collins' system. I just feel like the only thing that's different, the only difference is just the aggressive mentality that Coach Collins has in this go-around. So it's like my responsibility personally as a edge rusher, rush backer, whatever you want to consider it. Mm-hmm. My job is not too different. I'm still the hybrid DN outside linebacker. I'm mostly in the run mainly, but of course when you bring a simulated pressure, I'm either involved in it or I'm dropping in coverage. So it's just like, there's not too many differences. And when you have a defense that's a 4-2-5, there's only so many calls that you can do in that situation. So it's just like there's only so much that's expected. But as a responsibility as a leader, it's just like, of course, as I continuously get older, as there's more guys that are looking up to me or looking to me for like a response or a vocal as being a vocal leader or a physical leader or things of that nature. It's just like, of course, as each year passes, the responsibility increases. However, I don't really see that much of a change as what I've done in the previous time. I'm still being me at the end of the day. Mm-hmm. I feel like coaches knew that I had very raw leadership qualities coming into UNC, and they know that I'm doing the best I can. But of course, with like different leadership sessions that we hold at UNC and stuff like that, and so just polishing up on the quick things like that. My leadership abilities have increased, and the demand for it, of course, has also increased as well. But I don't think it's change too much from how I've done it in the past.
You guys take classes for leadership?
It's not necessarily classes, more sessions.
Okay.
If you want to consider it, it's not like leadership 101. We got to take a summer class for it. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, it's just literally like we have like a leadership council.
Yeah.
Guys that are voted on the leadership council. We do like a little session on, it could be a debrief or like just us and a few other guys that's been appointed on the leadership council. Just like kind of like what can we do to improve the team's morale, chemistry, the guys that have missed stuff, the guys that have done well in the weight room and conditioning or in practice and stuff like that. Just things of that nature. And of course, like we also have the incentive responsibilities of like choosing uniforms and whether we have a movie in a late night game the night before and stuff like that. Like there's a lot of different choices that we have to make, but mainly to establish and to really set forth how this team is going to go forward with different decisions that's being made, whether that's regarding punishment or rewarding players that's done what they needed to be doing.
Kaimon Rucker, edge rusher for the North Carolina Tar Heels, joining us on the Bodyworks Plus guest hotline. Kaimon, you had a chance to go to the NFL last year. You come back. How close was that call? How close were you to leaving for the National Football League?
I played the TBD card for the longest time. There was just like, so you're going out. And I'm like, bro, I don't know. Don't ask me. Don't worry about me. Like, I'm just like, let's just play it day by day. You know what I'm saying? Like, let's just go ahead and just roll with the punches, deal with the cards that are already dealt, and then we'll cross that bridge when we get there. And literally when I hit the bridge, I still didn't know if I wanted to cross it yet. And so, I prayed about it, talked to my parents about it, talked to a couple of my coaches and see like what's like my draft stock looking like, if I was to go, where am I getting drafted and stuff like that. I got that type of information. And, I just feel like in my faith, I feel like God has told me to just like there's some stuff that I still needed to accomplish, especially from a leadership standpoint. And, just learning how to be a better leader because I feel like I was ready mentally and physically, but it was just certain things that I feel like there was needed to be accomplished this upcoming year for me to do. And so I was just like, you know what, let's optimize this last year, go ahead and get my undergrad degree, go ahead and finish up school, get into my master's program, debt-free, and, just, take care of business on the football field while I'm here.
What was your draft stock looking like from what you heard?
For what I understand, I was kind of like a third to fifth.
Okay.
That was like I'm just giving out an average.
Sure.
So it was just like that's how like that's my highest and my lowest. And from a grand scheme of things, it's not too bad, but just knowing the player that I am, given for the fact. Yeah, it's just like, obviously due to the fact it's just like I know I'm not going to grow any taller. So, I mean, like you can go ahead and just throw that out the draft stock analysis or whatever. I'm not getting taller. But it's just like one of the things where it's just like anything else that I can control, I will.
Sure.
Now, last question. The nickname The Butcher,
Yep.
Where did that come from? Because I absolutely love it.
Benny? It's not Benny the Butcher, is it?
Oh,
no, it's Ruck the Butcher.
Heck of an artist, though. I like listening to him a lot.
I'd say Griselda's crazy.
But, man, tell me about it. But, yeah, I got the nickname. It was my freshman year at COVID. It was my first ever start in Boston College, and I made like a TFL. And the announcers, actually, my D-line coach at the time, Tim Cross, explained to the announcers that I was as aggressive as a rolling ball of butcher knives. And
that sounds so high school coaching, too.
That's so Tim Cross, too, man.
He's crazy.
And the way that y'all are reacting to it is literally the way that the announcers were reacting to it at the time. So, obviously NIL is up and running. We're about to get that thing kicked off. And so now that NCAA passed the rule, now we can get paid off our name, image, and like this. My dad was like, all right, we got to do something with this. And so I was just like, all right, what you want to do with it then? And so we kind of incorporated the Butcher stuff, made my own little store, merchandise, all that kind of stuff. If you're feeling generous, championslockerroom.com at Ruck the Butcher.
There you go.
You know what I'm saying? So, we had that established. And now we're here.
I was about to say, does Benny have a trademark on the Butcher coming? Because that would be.
I think he does.
I don't want to get you in trouble. I'm not trying to get Kaimon in trouble. I just want to see, like, if it's there, it would be nice to roll with.
I would love one of these days to meet him and be like, listen, bro, I ain't trying to crash. I ain't trying to crash your tower or what you got going on. But like, obviously you're the Butcher in the music world. I'm the Butcher in the football world. We can still collab whenever. So
we got to get that going, man.
I'm just saying, if he drops a music video and he wants another Butcher persona,
there you go.
Kaimon Rucker's your guy. So
not Benny the Butcher. It's Kaimon Rucker joining us on Wes and Walker, Sports Radio 92.7 WFNZ. Kaimon, we appreciate it, man. Good luck to you.
Y'all. Thank y'all so much.
All right, there he is, Kaimon Rucker stopping by with WFNZ earlier today. Really appreciate him. Again, you can hear that interview again tomorrow on the Wes and Walker Show over on 92.7 FM here in Charlotte and on the WFNZ app. Well, now we go from Kaimon, which again was on that show. Now it's going to just be me. You'll hear just me talking with Power Echols, the senior linebacker for the Tar Heels, who is now taking on a bigger role this year. He's going to be the senior leader of this group, really the vocal leader of the defense, the guy that's going to have to communicate and get everything set up. So, we asked him a little bit about that and a few other things. Here's Power Echols earlier today at ACC Media Days.
Here with Power Echols. Power, first of all, crazy day, man. First time you've been out to this. So what's this experience been like for you, being here at Media Days?
It's been a cool experience, man. I can't lie. It's a blessing being out here, seeing everybody dressed down in nice suits and ties, and just being in a professional setting. I feel like it's cool.
Well, the other thing is you're back in your hometown. You went to now Chambers High School. At the time it was Vance when you went there. So being able to come back, experience something like this here in a place that's so special to you, that's got to be an added element, right?
Yeah, for sure. It's always cool, man. I take it in one moment at a time, one step at a time, and I'm just blessed and thankful that I'm in this position.
Well, you got a new defensive coordinator this year in Jeff Collins. He takes over for Gene Chizik. When it comes to Jeff, we've heard about how aggressive he is, a lot of positivity and everything like that. What do you think about him so far? I know you've been through the spring, so it's hard to get a perfect feel for him, but what do you think about his system and everything like that?
I feel like it plays to the strengths of his players, and we feed off his energy, his enthusiasm, and just his personality as a whole. You need a guy like that on the defensive end. I feel like us as players really feed off of that.
Well, your linebacker mate for the last couple of years, Cedric Gray's now headed to the NFL. So in terms of your role in the defense, and, with Jeff coming in, is there any change to it? Have they told you that you're taking on, a certain responsibility that maybe you didn't have the last couple of years? How has that changed for you heading into this year?
I would say I'll probably take more of a vocal step forward, being that he just stepped out the door, so filling that little void. And honestly, just being myself, going out there and doing what I've been doing the last few years of my career, and being myself and leading by example as well. Joined
by Power Echols here on the Heel Tough Vlog podcast. Power, one of the other things that I think a lot of people are kind of wondering about is, the defensive line that's in front of you. You played with a lot of these guys here for a while. What makes you confident that these guys can take a step forward this year and really help you guys out at the linebacker spot?
I see the way they work each and every day, and with Ted Monachino, I feel like he's really give them a different perspective on the way the game flows and the ebb and flows of the football game and how the trenches work. Give them an NFL perspective, and I feel like that's helped them tremendously in growing their knowledge of the game, and allowed them to play way faster than they've played in years past.
Well, what about the new guy that's next to you? I mean, you played with them a little bit last year, but now he's going to be a starter next to you. What does Amari Campbell bring to the table?
Amari Campbell brings fierce competitor, toughness, and extremely smart football player that I feel like a lot of people don't give him credit for. He's a veteran, but he's a rookie. But he's a vet out there, so he knows everything that's going on. He can tell other people what they got going on before they even know it. So I feel like this year is going to be a special year for him. He's going to really put his name on the map.
One of the things that they're kind of searching for right now is depth in that linebacker room. I mean, look, you got a couple of guys that are coming in here that are fall enrollees. But, in terms of that room overall, what do you think about that group that is behind you and the chances that some of those guys can step up and play this year?
I got a strong feeling about all those guys under me and Amari. I feel like our room is special because we help each other, we coach each other in that room, and we push each other to be the best in everything we do each and every day. And I feel like Coach Stig, the way he coaches, his philosophy, I feel like them guys will be ready to play and ready to go in no time.
The two quarterbacks that are here with you got a chance to see them in the spring. What's kind of your takeaways from the defensive side of the ball by what you saw from both of those guys?
I would say, man, we got two special quarterbacks in those two, and I feel like whoever one we go with is going to be the right one. And I honestly can't even pinpoint not a flaw, but I can't pinpoint necessarily a lever in which one would be higher than the other. They both. It's a tough race right now. It's an even race, and they both give us the fits in practice. So.
Mac Brown, he's kind of been talking about taking that next step for you guys. And last year, another tough finish to the season. So what's kind of his message to you guys this year about finally being able to close the season strong? Is that something you guys have been talking about a lot this spring and this offseason?
We talk about it since when we first started the year. That's the only thing we've talked about is finishing. And I feel like this year we want to dominate the year, take it 1 week at a time, but we really want to show people that we can go the distance and we can do something really special that nobody has ever been able to do here in a long time.
All right, last thing I got to ask you, you're going up in practice against a guy that could be the ACC preseason player of the year in Amari and Hampton. How special is that, and how difficult is it going up against a guy that's as talented as he is?
It's just fun, man. I feel like he pushes us to be better each and every day. That guy works his tail off, and he pushes us to be the best versions of ourselves each and every day. So going up against a guy like that, man, you really appreciate it.
That's your senior linebacker here on the Heel Tough Blog podcast. Power Echols. Power, thanks for stopping by with us, man.
Appreciate you.
All right, there you go, guys. Don't know what happened there at the end. It sounded like I got a leg hair ripped out or something like that. But no, I have no idea. Just stumbled over my words there. Sometimes, guys, believe it or not, even for the guys that do this every single day, it's tough to speak. But both of those guys I thought were tremendous. Kaimon, I got to be honest, to me, the thing that stuck out the most is confident dude. I mean, confident but very humble. A guy that knows that Mac Brown, when he was up there on the stand watching that, earlier this evening, very thankful for the opportunity that Mac Brown gave him. There weren't many opportunities out there for him coming out of high school. A guy ranked outside of the top 1,000. And immediately, Mac Brown sees something in him and gives him a chance pretty early on in his career. And he really ran with it. He's thrived. And now he's ready to be a leader. And I feel like he's a guy that knows that he is a really good player that can take things to the next level this season. And then Power Echols, a guy that I think Carolina, I think he's so similar to Cedric Gray, because you may be saying, he seems like he's a little bit quiet and all that. He's a guy that when he gets on the field, that's when his voice comes out. And I feel like we're going to see that this year. He's also a guy that has led by example, even going back to high school, watching a ton of his games. That's the way that he was. I think it's going to be a great season for him in the middle of this defense. I think he is the perfect guy, especially with him being able to work alongside of Cedric Gray and see how he did things the last couple of seasons. I think a lot of that's going to rub off on him, and I think he's going to be a great leader for this Tar Heel defense this season. So great talking to those guys. Again, if you missed the Kaimon Rucker interview, you can catch it again tomorrow on Wes and Walker, 12 to 3 on 92.7 WFNZ here in Charlotte, or on the WFNZ app. So make sure you check that out. Of course, we will podcast this edition of the show as well if you guys want to go back and listen to it. So plenty of ways that you can take in those interviews if you missed either one of those. Last thing that I want to get to before we get out of here, guys, there was some news that happened while we were at ACC Media Days. We knew that 2025 four-star wide receiver Malik Clark was going to announce his commitment today. He did so right after noon, earlier this afternoon at Rock Hill High School down there in Rock Hill, South Carolina. And look, this was one where the Tar Heels did a really good job in the spring in this recruitment. Really established themselves as the leader, even got a couple of crystal ball predictions for him. Then, as we're going through this past week, after he reveals, that he's going to make, he's going to announce his commitment, he reveals his top schools list. All of a sudden, South Carolina is the school that's really starting to trend. Makes a lot of sense. That was the school that was on him and was in the driver's seat early before Carolina eventually took it over. And it looked like a sure thing that he was going to stay in state and travel down to Columbia for school. That is not the case. He is going to stay in the ACC and instead go to Florida State. One of the more shocking commitments that we've seen. Really, it's been a long time since we've seen crystal ball predictions that were cast on 24/7 Sports. A ton of rivals forecasts that were in South Carolina's favor as well. It's been a while since we've seen a stunner like this in the modern recruiting era, especially with how much they talk to these guys. But I got to give it to Florida State. They were able to somehow pull that off and land his commitment. And now the important thing here is that Carolina is looking at looking almost certain that they will not be bringing a wide receiver in this class. They do still have two guys that are uncommitted that took official visits to campus back in June. One of them is an in-state guy. He visited back on June 7th. That's Shamarius Peterkin. He's a guy that, look, I would love to imagine that Carolina now turns the heat up and can find a way before he announces on August 16th that they can end up landing him. Look, you're our top priority. You're the only guy in this class that we could be bringing in. And who knows? Maybe that is something that they will pitch to him. He's a guy that NC State has done a tremendous job with. He is very closely connected with Joker Phillips. Doesn't seem like he has nearly the same type of connection with Lonnie Galloway, at least just looking at how he has spoke about the three schools that are finalists for him. So that means more than likely Carolina probably won't be bringing in him in this class. So then you've got the 3-star wide receiver in Evan Haynes, guy that visited on the first week of June. He, was a guy that I don't think we really heard a whole lot about, but comes from the state of Georgia. Carolina's done a great job of recruiting out of the state of Georgia. They've recruited a few successful wide receivers out of the state as well. Another guy that Carolina really established themselves pretty well with back in the spring. And even, going back to the winter time, Carolina, really impressed him. And I think they put themselves in a pretty good spot. Well, I think part of it is that Carolina had bigger targets, guys that they were a little more focused on. And he's kind of been a guy that I don't know if he slipped onto the back burner, but I just don't know if he's on the same level as some of those other guys that Carolina was targeting. And that has opened the door for other teams to step in and present their case. And one team in particular, the Colorado Buffaloes, have come through. Dion and company, I think, have themselves probably in the best spot for him right now. Now, the other day, he told Anna Adams of 24/7 Sports he's going to announce his commitment on August 6th. So an even shorter period of time where Carolina would have to convince him that now, hey, you are our top target. We really need you in this class. That's, again, got to be their pitch if they're wanting to bring him in. It'll be interesting to see. You wonder about with the timing of it. Did Carolina already kind of know that Malik Clark was not coming to Carolina, was, in their minds, probably just like everybody else's, going to South Carolina before Florida State swooped in and landed his commitment? If they knew that, maybe ahead of time, they sat down, talked to him through text message, through phone calls, whatever, and let him know that, okay, now you're our top priority. I hope that's the case, but I'm not 100% positive that is. And so Carolina, one of the final four for them, it's Carolina, Colorado, Harvard, interestingly enough, which makes a lot of sense, though, when you look at the school itself, and the local team, Georgia Tech. So I want to be positive that this is a guy in Lonnie Galloway that if he wants somebody, he can get him. He is a guy that has produced 5 straight years with a draft pick out of the wide receiver room. So in terms of pedigree, not really many that are better in college football. But it is asking a lot for you to shift that quickly, especially with a guy that less than, a little over a week, rather, after your top target at the position goes off the board, he's getting set to announce. And then a guy that's that for a long time has been firmly locked in with NC State. A lot of people have really just been waiting for him to announce the commitment to find a way in really about 2 weeks. I think that's asking a lot, but we'll see. This is a staff that has worked miracles before on the recruiting trail when it's come to, flipping the direction that recruitments are going, even flipping, recruits from other schools pretty quickly. So we'll see what Carolina is able to do, but staring down the barrel of a class where they do not bring in a wide receiver, which would be pretty stunning. I know they've done a great job the last few years of stocking the position pretty well, but to not land a wide receiver, I mean, it's to me, it is a crucial spot that you want to have somebody every year, especially with how much you see, that position getting recruited in the transfer portal by other schools. I think it's important for you to bring in at least one guy in every class. So we'll see how aggressive Carolina gets. There's an article on the website for you guys that you can check out about this, where we go a little more in depth. So make sure you head over there and check that out. Also, plenty of other stuff on the website on the football side of things. Again, we'll have something up about ACC Media Days. That'll probably be going up tomorrow. We wanted to make sure that we got the podcast out to you guys today. With my hosting duties here this week, and especially today, just wasn't really able to get anything written up while we were out there like I have in years past. So apologize for that, but we'll make the adjustment. And then, of course, with camp getting ready to start, there'll be a couple other articles that'll be coming out as well. Camp starting over the weekend, actually. I believe it is Sunday when they are starting. So that'll be a little bit of a different sort of start time than normal, but Carolina going to be getting after it as soon as this weekend and getting prepared for that opener, that Thursday night opener against Minnesota. We're going to take you up to that as well. Again, position previews are rolling out right now on the website. As we get closer to the season, the breakout candidates as well as the bold predictions will be up there on the website for you guys. So make sure you're keeping an eye out on all of that stuff on the football side of things. And, of course, plenty of stuff coming here on the podcast as well. Meanwhile, on the basketball side of things, Carolina in the final 5 for Jasper Johnson. That's a big-time target for Carolina, a guy that really thrived at the Peach Jam this past week. And so we got an article up about that to kind of tell you where things stand and the chances that Carolina has to land his commitment. So make sure you're checking in on that. And we do have an article up on the website about the schedule, the non-conference schedule that was released. We sort of break down each of the teams that Carolina will face. We tried to put it on the Facebook page. It's acting weird with us right now. So when it comes to that article, we put up the Malik Clark one, no problem. So we're going to, try to take a look at that, see if we can't get it up, but it is on our Facebook page or on our Twitter page rather. And you guys can also just go to the website and check it out. That's what we suggest you do every single day. Go there, check it out, so you can get your latest Tar Heel football and basketball news and opinions. So it's all in one place. Again, HeelToughBlog.com. So that's going to wrap it up for this edition of the podcast. Want to thank Power Echols, Kaimon, Rucker for joining us over at WFNZ today. Want to thank Josh Marlowe for hosting with me. Want to thank you guys, of course, for watching and listening. And as always, go Tar Heels.